My name is Anjali McKenzie, and I am a Senior Product Manager for the GMAT exam over at GMAC, the Graduate Management Admission Council. And I have been with GMAC for about 7 years, started off on the GMAT prep team and then transitioned over to the GMAT team. So I've been on the GMAT team for about 4 years now, really focusing on anything related to the GMAT exam, including our new GMAT Focus Edition. Just going back a little bit, since its launch in 1954, the GMAT exam has really been the gold standard for graduate business degree admissions and for schools to help them evaluate a candidate's preparedness for a business school degree. And with that, over the years since 1954, we've really focused on evolving the GMAT exam to stay relevant to both candidates and schools. So, of course, we know over the past couple of years, the needs of today's business world have rapidly been evolving and shifting. So with that, we decided to take a deep dive and do some research, talking with schools, talking with candidates to really understand what was going on in the market, what the needs were for both schools and candidates. So we started this off with talking with a number of different business schools and other professionals in the business school industry. And what we learned was that the skills needed for today's business world were shifting, right? Schools were looking to understand a bit more about data literacy skills, data analysis skills, kind of critical thinking and problem solving skills. And all of these skills call for really complex judgments and are absolutely critical to being successful in the business environment. So not only are these skills important for business schools, but also for employers beyond business school. With that insight, we actually went on to kick off a robust research effort through a third party so we could objectively understand the needs of both schools and candidates. And after speaking with over 65 schools, doing some concept testing and research with over 5,400 candidates globally, we came to understand and learn that there were 3 key themes that were coming out of all of our research in terms of how we needed to evolve the GMAT exam. And those 3 themes were that we needed to make an exam that was more efficient, more flexible, and more insightful. So you'll see those 3 themes carry throughout all of the changes we made to the GMAT exam with the GMAT Focus Edition, and that sort of gives you the background of why we decided to change the exam. There's a number of things I'm going to go through here, starting with the structure of the exam. So to start, the GMAT Focus Edition features just 3 45-minute sections: quantitative reasoning, which has 21 questions, verbal reasoning, which has 23 questions, and data insights, which has 20 questions. The exam is almost an hour shorter than the current GMAT exam. Candidates can use a calculator with the data insights section. And part of that shortening of the exam is that the exam no longer includes the essay, so there's no analytical writing assessment, or the AWA section. Next, we've introduced the data insight section. So as I mentioned earlier, that's one of the 3 sections in the exam. And the reason we introduced this section is, again, because schools were really interested in understanding more about a candidate's data literacy and data analysis skill set. So with the data insights section, we've combined question types from the IR section plus data sufficiency questions. And that entire section has been recalibrated to better measure a candidate's data literacy skills. And what that means exactly is it's really evaluating a candidate's ability to interpret data and apply it to real-world business scenarios. So being able to effectively evaluate that data with this new data literacy dimension was one of the key points of feedback we heard from schools, given how critical it is for the business world. So a couple other things that are specific to the candidate friendliness or candidate features are that with the GMAT Focus Edition, sections can be completed in any order. You may be familiar with the current GMAT exam, and there's only 3 section order options in the current exam. So with the GMAT Focus Edition, candidates can actually select their order, any order they want. There's all the options across all 3 sections. We've added a new question review and edit feature, which is really awesome. We understand that this is important to candidates based on our research, and what this feature does is it enables candidates to bookmark questions they feel uncomfortable with as they move through the exam, or they feel unsure about as they move through the exam, and then go back and review those questions and edit up to 3 questions in each section within the remaining section time. So candidates can actually review any question regardless of whether it's bookmarked, and then they have the opportunity to change up to 3 questions per section, which is awesome. And then moving on to score sending. So a couple things here I want to highlight in terms of what's changed for the GMAT Focus Edition. So the total score, it now includes performance across all 3 sections. Previously, the total score, or with the current GMAT exam, the total score includes performance across the quantitative reasoning and verbal reasoning section. With GMAT Focus Edition, the total score includes performance across verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and data insights. And the total scores now range from 205 to 805 with in increments of 10, and section scores range from 60 to 90 in increments of 1. Next, we have the score sending process. So this is an exciting one as well. With the GMAT Focus Edition, we still continue to include 5 free score reports, but we've really improved the candidate experience here. So we learned through our rollout of the exam delivered online, which we rolled out at the start of the pandemic, we learned that the score sending experience that we had introduced with that version of the exam, or that channel of the exam, was really appreciated. We got a lot of positive feedback on that customer or that candidate experience. And so with GMAT Focus Edition, we decided to extend that across both our channels, both online and test center delivery of the GMAT Focus Edition. So to dive into that a little bit, the way that that experience works is that once candidates receive their official score on MBA.com, they have the opportunity to log in, review their score, and then decide if they want to send their scores to programs. Historically, or with the current GMAT exam, candidates who take the exam at a test center, they actually have to select their free score reports up front, and then they have to accept their score if they want those score reports to be sent, or cancel their score. And then they may have to reinstate their score if they want to send their score reports later, or the free score reports that they selected up front. So that's no longer the case with GMAT Focus Edition delivered at a test center. Candidates get to see their official score and then decide. So candidates have 48 hours after receiving their official score to decide if they want to send their score report for free. They get up to 5 free score reports. And then after that 48-hour period, or if they've consumed all 5 of the free score reports, they can send additional score reports for a fee. On top of that, with the score sending control that we've offered to candidates, candidates no longer will be sending historical scores. So again, that's a change from our current test center delivered exam, where historical scores or any scores on previous exams are sent with the sending of a score report to programs. With the GMAT Focus Edition, there will be no historical scores on the score report, so candidates are in full control of which scores they do and do not send to programs. If a candidate doesn't want to send a score to their program, they don't have to take any action. They don't have to cancel the score. They don't have to touch the score. That score will remain in their MBA.com account, only for their eyes, will not get sent to the program. So a lot of great functionality and features that we've introduced in terms of score sending that really do give candidates more flexibility, more control over that entire score sending process. And then finally, just one last thing I want to highlight is the addition of our detailed performance insights for official score reports. So this is a feature that I'm personally really excited about. It's something, again, we've heard through feedback from candidates that they really value the additional insights we offer through the enhanced score report, which is a product we offer today for the GMAT exam delivered at a test center. However, that is an add-on product, so it costs an additional fee. Candidates have to purchase it as an add-on product essentially today. But with the GMAT Focus Edition, all of these detailed insights are included absolutely for free, no additional cost, no purchasing an add-on product. So now when candidates get their official score report on MBA.com, along with that, they will automatically see those additional insights. And what we did here was we took the learnings from the enhanced score report, took the insights from the enhanced score report and the feedback, and we took the pieces and the data that was really valuable for candidates, and we added to that. So with GMAT Focus Edition, you'll see some similarities with ESR, but also some new reports and some changes and some differences. So overall, we believe that this will be a huge improvement for candidates, and candidates will now have a lot more data and a lot more detail on how they've performed, and a better way to evaluate their strengths and weaknesses. the perception of difficulty or ease is really varied, right? So it depends on each candidate, and it's largely influenced by how much the candidate has prepared for the exam, their level of test anxiety on test day, and a lot of other factors, right? The environment they might be in, you know, how long they've planned to get to the test center, for example, that sort of thing. Like, there's so many factors on the day of testing that could really impact someone's perception of whether the test is hard or easy. They just could be having a good day, could be having a bad day. But I will say that with the GMAT Focus Edition, all sections of the GMAT Focus Edition are item adaptive. And what that means is that the question difficulty will adjust with the candidate's ability level. So the questions do adapt in an item adaptive exam, and they do adjust to a candidate's ability. So they should see questions that meet their ability and their level. Also keep in mind that the GMAT Focus Edition is shorter than the GMAT exam. It's shorter by almost an hour, which could reduce overall test fatigue when taking an exam. So that may be viewed as easier in that perspective in terms of test fatigue and the overall time that someone has to take the exam. We also expect that the question review and edit feature will help reduce some of the test anxiety that candidates may have, because it does allow candidates to, you know, manage their time a bit better, and gives candidates the latitude to move away from a question that they might be struggling on, and they might be spending time on that question, and it gives them the latitude to move away from that question and then go back to it later without wasting too much time on that question. So we think that some of the features, the fact that the exam is shorter, will help reduce that test anxiety, some of that test fatigue. Whether it's easier, whether it's more difficult, I think, again, that really kind of depends on the candidate, how they prepare, their strengths and weaknesses, etc. There are 3 sections in the GMAT Focus Edition, 3 45-minute sections: the quantitative reasoning section, verbal reasoning section, and data insights section. While we've updated the section content for verbal reasoning and quantitative reasoning, and we've updated the overall test construct in a very meaningful way, we haven't actually added any new question types, to be specific, so I'll talk a little bit about that. What we have done is we've removed some of the less relevant question types from some sections. So for example, we actually removed sentence correction from the verbal reasoning section, and we removed geometry related questions from the quantitative reasoning section. And we also actually moved the data sufficiency questions from the quantitative reasoning section over to the data insights section. So now if we take a look at the data insights section, that includes 5 question types as opposed to 4 question types, which is what is included in the current IR section, right? So now the data insights section includes multi-source reasoning, table analysis, graphics interpretation, and 2-part analysis, plus data sufficiency. So you'll see that those 5 question types are now in the data insights section, as opposed to the current GMAT exam, which had 4 of those question types and data sufficiency in the quantitative reasoning sections. We haven't added any question types. We have removed some specific question types, and we have moved some specific question types over to the data insights section, for example. So that's a little bit of the detail of how we've moved things or changed things in terms of the different sections. Really, the content, the item selection algorithm, the scoring algorithm, the overall look and feel, the features like question review and edit, section order, those are all the same across channels. So whether you take it at a test center or whether you take it online. And that decision of where to take it, which channel to leverage, really comes down to personal preference. So we believe that some candidates just are more comfortable taking it at home. They feel more relaxed. They also may need more flexibility with the appointment options. We do have more appointment time options with the online exam because they're available 24/7, whereas with test centers, the appointment availability is dependent on the test center location, of course. So some may be open certain hours or certain days of the week. So that's something to think about when deciding which channel. But we also know there's some candidates who really appreciate and really like the structure and the controlled environment of a test center. So, you know, maybe they have really noisy neighbors at home, or an internet connection that's a little unstable or they're concerned about. So we find that that might be a consideration when thinking about if you may want to take it at a test center. So that's just a couple things to consider. I don't really have a recommendation on, you know, where to take it. It's dependent on some of those factors. Schools have signaled that they will accept the accept either version of the GMAT exam, so the current GMAT exam or the GMAT Focus Edition. But we do encourage candidates to check with specific schools and specific programs they're interested in before applying, just so that they know the requirements and they can register for the exam that makes the most sense for their application process and their program. We believe that a lot of the prep is similar. So for candidates that have been preparing for the current GMAT exam, of course, if they feel comfortable taking the current exam, that makes sense. Again, schools will continue to accept the current GMAT exam. If they feel like they are interested in taking the GMAT Focus Edition because of some of the features or the fact that it's shorter, doesn't have an AWA, et cetera, then we believe that, the prep that candidates have been doing thus far will carry over to any prep needed for the GMAT Focus Edition. Just remember that we've only removed question types. We haven't added any question types. So if anything, they've probably done a little extra prep than what they actually need for the GMAT Focus Edition. But to speak specifically to what we do have and what we've recently launched for the GMAT Focus Edition. So we have official prep materials for the GMAT Focus Edition that were released early in June. So they're now live on MBA.com. And that includes our free GMAT Focus Starter Kit. So that is our official starter kit that includes a sampler of 70 real GMAT questions from past exams, a guided study for a step-by-step prep review, and 2 free full-length practice exams. So that's a great place to start. If you don't know where to start, definitely start with the official starter kit for GMAT Focus Edition. On top of that, we also have our GMAT official guides, which we know are very popular. Those come in a physical as well as an ebook format. And new for this year, our official guide includes a data insights review chapter. Of course, now that we have a data insights section for the GMAT Focus Edition, as well as 3 separate supplements. So 1 for each of the sections. So there's a verbal supplement, a quantitative supplement, and a data insights supplement. So candidates can purchase whatever they think will be most valuable to them. And with the shorter GMAT Focus Edition, we believe that candidates can prepare in as little as 6 weeks as opposed to 8 weeks, which is kind of our recommended, standard time frame for the current GMAT exam. So we do have a new study planner online at MBA.com. So we encourage candidates to download. It's also a free study planner. It's a 6-week study planner. So we encourage candidates to download that study planner to help them set up a schedule, inform their prep activities, their prep products that they should consider, and track their progress. This is not different between the different versions of the exam. So scores for the GMAT Focus Edition will continue to be valid for 5 years, which is in alignment with our current GMAT exam. So current GMAT exam scores will continue to be valid for 5 years as well as GMAT Focus Edition scores. One thing I do want to stress is that these scores are not comparable because the test constructs are different. We've made meaningful changes. We've changed the score scale due to that change in test construct and the changes we've made to the content and the structure of the exam. So it's really important to understand that scores on the GMAT Focus Edition cannot be compared one-to-one with scores on the GMAT exam, since they represent different performance levels and different skill sets, right? So for example, a 600 on the GMAT exam and a 605 on the GMAT Focus Edition are not the same score. So if you get a 600 on the GMAT exam, go take the GMAT Focus Edition, get a 605. Don't think of that as the same score. We really want everyone to be looking at percentile rankings. And so that's kind of the key indicator of your performance, right? And I know we've talked a little bit about percentile rankings on our website. We have a percentile table for each of the sections as well as the total score. So that's something to take a look at. And we also added to MBA.com a concordance table. And what that concordance table does is it takes a look at the percentile and shows you what your score would be at that percentile for GMAT Focus Edition and for current GMAT exams. So it's a good way to view percentile information and scoring information across exam versions if you need to do that or if you're interested in that type of information. But just want to make it very clear, doing that one-to-one comparison won't help you. It will actually be really critical for you to look at percentile rankings across exams. Nope, no difference in pricing as well. So with either the GMAT Focus Edition or the current GMAT exam, the pricing remains the same across the exam versions, but just keep in mind that pricing does vary by location. So again, it's important to check MBA.com and click, there's a drop-down menu where you can look at your location and see what the pricing is specific to your location, but it is the same across both exam versions.